land. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land, glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you to an alumni of our very own Grande Prairie Boys Choir for the audio of O Canada, and thanks to council members for all joining in, I'm sure, in your home environments too. So we'll move on to the adoption of previous council meeting minutes. Can I get a motion for that set of minutes? Councilor Minhas.
I'll move the council adopt the minutes of City Council meeting held Monday, April 6, 2020 as presented.
Thanks very much, Councilor Minhas. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Seeing no one raising their hand, then I will call for the vote to adopt them. All in favor? Thank you. That motion carries unanimously. And we'll move on to the adoption of the agenda. Now, I would like to recommend council the addition of two additional items. Number one, advancing infrastructure projects to support economic recovery. And number two, budget 2020. I would look to our city clerk to see if she has a recommendation, but I believe these would come as 7.2 and 7.3. Is that correct, Arlene? Yes. Okay, I see that it is. So can I get a motion to adopt the agenda with those two additions? Councillor Platt.
Thanks, Mayor Gibbon. I make a motion that we adopt the agenda with a set amendments.
Thanks very much. Any discussion or debate on that motion? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Thank you. That motion carries. And we'll move on into the rest of our agenda. We have our open delegation portion. This is an opportunity that exists at every regular city council meeting via Zoom, in person, or any other technology. We have an opportunity for the public to come and address council. I believe we provided the public an opportunity to Zoom in and join us electronically or on the phone. Can administration report whether there was anybody who wished to take us up on that opportunity today? I'll look maybe to the city clerk. Do we have anybody that wished to make a delegation today?
We have no one prepared to present for the 3 o'clock meeting today.
Okay. Thank you very much. So we'll close the delegation portion and just remind the public that although we have changed the format of our meetings, we haven't changed the fundamental opportunity that people have to attend a council meeting. Although we may be doing it slightly differently, if anybody is interested in making representation to council, the opportunity to do that would be to contact city administration, and they can let you know about all the different ways we could do that. I believe that we may even have a public workstation set up in the lobby at City Hall. If there was somebody who had intended to show up at the City Hall and present to council, they could have done that via Zoom in City Hall. But seeing that there's nobody here today, we'll move on into our agenda. We have a couple items of unfinished business. Starting with bylaw C-1260-116, which is a land use bylaw amendment related to social housing definitions. I don't know if we need a refresher from administration on this, but we do need a motion to give third reading to move that forward into discussion and debate. Councillor Bressie.
Thank you, Mayor Gibbon. I move the council give third reading to bylaw C-1260-116, be an amendment to the land use bylaw.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Bressie. Open for discussion and debate. I don't see anyone ringing in. Then recognizing that this was on our agenda at last council meeting, then I will call for the vote on third reading. All in favor? Thank you. That motion carries unanimously, I believe. And then that'll take us to item 6.2, bylaw C 1260-119. And this had to do with radius measurements for a couple different issues. I see Councilor Minhas.
Shut my speaker off and maybe can blank it.
Councilor Minhas, are you declaring a conflict of interest on this item?
Yeah.
Okay, Councilor Minhas declares a conflict of interest. Councilor Palat?
Thanks, Mayor Given. I'd love nothing more than debate this one for hours on hours, but I also have a conflict on it, so I will hopefully my colleagues will do the right thing.
Okay, thanks, Councilor Palat. And if those were all, we did have those conflicts of interest last time. Were there any other ones? I'm trying to remember from our last meeting. I don't believe so. Then I will go to somebody. Was there somebody that wished to make the motion for third reading? Councilor O'Toole? You just have to get, there you go, Councilor.
Yep. Mayor Given, I move the council give third reading to bylaw C-1260-119 being an amendment to the land use bylaw.
Thanks very much, Councilor O'Toole. That motion's open for discussion and debate. Councilor Clayton.
Thanks, Mayor Given. I won't be supporting this motion. Earlier this term or last term, I don't recall exactly what year, but there was an agreed upon percentage of secondary suites that council wanted administration to achieve. And from my understanding of this change, we will not achieve our goals in regards to secondary suites. Right now, I know that it's being proposed as a cleanup to a document. However, the 50-meter radius, as it draws out now, will actually in turn allow us, we will get less overall secondary suites. I don't think that we've put the work into this that council needs in regards to achieve our secondary suite objective, and therefore I won't be supporting this.
Okay, thanks, Councilor Clayton. Any other discussion or debate? Councilor Friesen.
Thank you, Mayor Given. And I actually need to mention that I didn't come back after the break last week, and I just voted on something for which I was not present at a public hearing. I believe these social housing definitions were a public hearing item, as is this, and having not returned after break last council meeting, I cannot vote on these.
Thank you for flagging that for us, Councilor Friesen. So we'll make sure, so we are down then to voting members will be Councilor Blackburn, Thiessen, O'Toole, Ressi, myself, and Clayton. Okay, thank you. Did I have somebody else in the queue to speak? Councilor Ressi, I believe.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Given. I'll be voting in favor of this. And for me, I think that it's closing a loophole that allows the land use bylaw to meet the clear intentions of what the councils of the day that put these various regulations in meant it to hit. Councilor Clayton, if you want to have a conversation about we should loosen up that 50-meter radius or we should change our approach to secondary suites, I'm very, very, very open to that conversation. But I don't think that the way that we should achieve loosening of this policy is by having a loophole that some developers will be able to take advantage of and some won't. So while I get what you're saying, Councilor Clayton, I might be supportive, at the same time, I think that today we should be closing this loophole.
Thanks, Councilor Ressi. Is there any other discussion or debate? I don't see, Councilor O'Toole?
Yeah, I'll be supporting this bylaw change.
Okay, thanks, Councilor O'Toole. I don't see anybody else in the queue. Then I will call for the vote on third reading. All in favor? Okay, so I see Councilor Bressie, myself, Councilor O'Toole, Councilor Blackburn, and Councilor Thiessen. All in favor and opposed? Councilor Clayton is opposed, so that motion for third reading does carry. And so we can ask Councilor Palat and Minhas to come back in. Councilor Clayton, did you have something further on this item?
Sure. I don't know if the two councillors that already declared interest declared conflict need to stay out of this conversation. I think they can decide that on their own. But I would like to, I have a follow-up motion if that's okay at this time.
Sure.
So I would move that council direct administration to bring back a report in regards to secondary suites showing that we are achieving the objectives as set out by council. So with the new changes, what that looks like, what objectives we're achieving, and from there, council can have a clear understanding of the numbers of secondary suites and whether or not we're achieving what we set out to do. So I just want a follow-up report brought back from administration with this bylaw now cleaned up of what that looks like, so council at that time can see what we're actually achieving through our secondary suite bylaw currently.
Sure. So just to be clear, so your follow-up motion is specific to secondary suites because the radius measurement.
Yeah, not in cannabis. No,
yeah.
Just secondary suites.
Okay, thank you. So Councillor Minhas and Councillor Platt, if your conflict of interest was related to cannabis, then you may want to declare. Then this doesn't deal with that. Yeah, Councillor Platt.
Thanks, Mayor Given. Mine would still deal with that. I would just ask if there's any chance with that to be also ensure that we've had industry consultation, because I think there's been more than enough asks from them about this specific item. So I would just leave that for council, but I will declare a conflict.
Okay. So I will ask council members if they have a conflict just to declare so, or if they have a perceived conflict to declare so, and to exit council chambers electronically, rather than make any statements about the topic that they're declaring a conflict of interest on. Councillor Minhas?
No, I'm out. I'm declaring conflict, yeah.
Okay, so Councillor Minhas is declaring a conflict of interest. So Councillor Minhas, I'll just get you to turn your camera off while we're discussing. Thank you. Okay, so Councillor Clayton's made a motion directing administration to bring back a report on whether or not the city's meeting its objectives related to secondary suites. Councillor Bressie?
Thank you. I'm supportive of the intent for this going. I'm just not sure if I quite understand the motion, and that just might be because I wasn't on council the last time secondary suites were really robustly talked. I recall there being a target for how many multifamily units we want in the city, but I don't recall targets specific to secondary suites. Could you just catch me up on what targets you're talking about?
Councillor Clayton?
So probably a better question for administration, but of the technical side of it. But in regards to the 50-meter radius, it actually included secondary suites as well. So there's an objective, and if I remember the document correctly, I think it's 20% objective. And so the intent of this motion is just to bring back the report after the bylaw is cleaned up, so we can have a full council conversation on what we're actually achieving right now with this bylaw. And from there may be actions that are taken from that to direct, a review of the bylaw, et cetera. But I just want a report brought back to see what we're actually achieving currently.
Okay. So I see Councillor Bressie. So I'm, and I know, I think I saw, I would either go to the director or Mr. DeRoche is, I think, available to us as well. But I also don't recall any specific targets for the creation of secondary suites or any targets that we had set. So, Mr. Glava, do you have any other information, or how would administration interpret this motion?
Thank you, Mayor Given. I'm not aware of a specific percentage that we're looking to achieve on secondary suites, although the municipal development plan does seek to maintain a diverse housing stock. And one way to achieve that within that plan was to maintain 25% of dwelling units as multifamily. So those units that would be 3 units and up.
And Mr. Glavin, is that 20 or 25%? Is that is that currently suspended? That MDP sort of guidance is, I believe that's a number that council actually provided a temporary relaxation on. Is that correct?
Yes, we did have a temporary relaxation of that amount. And that was for, I believe, small lot residential, actually, not specifically multifamily.
Thank you. Okay. So I see Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I don't know why, but I have a strong recollection that there was definitely discussion about secondary suites on the number that would be allowed in a particular radius. So I'm in support of Councillor Clayton's motion, just so that we can clear up that fact, as well as finding out where we really sit.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Blackburn. Is there any other discussion or debate on Councillor Clayton's motion? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Okay, keep them up, folks. All in favor? Okay, and opposed? Okay, there's one opposed. And so we can call back Councillor Minhas and Councillor Palat. If you can hear me, if you haven't turned off your audio on your end, you can log back in, and I'll welcome you back into the council meeting. Thanks, Councillor Palat. Thanks, Councillor Minhas. And so that brings us to item 7.1, CAO update, and I would look to our city manager, Mr. Horacio Galante.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As usual, I will provide a CAO update regarding COVID-19 related activities from our GPREP team, and also a brief update about our 4 service areas. So as of yesterday, April 19, in the province of Alberta, we had 645 new cases over the weekend related to COVID-19. With a total of 2,800 cases in the province. 55 deaths, with 5 deaths over the weekend. 16,000 tests performed over the weekend, with a total number of tests of about 100,000. And we had 1,200 recovered patients in total. A brief update about GPREP activities. So the temporary cot overflow program is progressing well, and we're monitoring the program and ensuring resources are properly supplied. The community care program is also being monitored, and we're continuing with deliveries. In terms of logistics, operations, and the planning sections of the EOC, we're updating the isolation procedures and working on a mobile camp isolation plan. We're also finalizing the staff scheduling and succession planning as we're entering into a new shift of people for the EOC. The planning section is working on the homeless and vulnerable population information. We are reviewing the processes and documentation and orientation planning for the new GPREP staff that is starting the new shift. In terms of the liaison officer, is working with planning to develop isolation plans for women and the youth. Also, we're monitoring pharmacies and grocery stores, and I can report that the supply is steady. We had some minor shortages, but in general, the supermarkets and pharmacies are reporting that the products are coming on a regular basis. In terms of the service areas, for the infrastructure and economic development area, for the last couple of weeks since I did my previous report to council, we have launched the GP Grows at Home Gardening Program. The program has been fully subscribed for 1,100 kids by 6 p.m. on the launch day, so highly successful. Due to some supply chain issues, we had to deviate from original plan and add some additional seed types to the program. We finished the residential snow operations on April 8th. As you may know, Economic Development launched the Advisory Services Voucher Program in partnership with the county and the Chamber of Commerce. So far, 14 businesses have accessed the program to date. The Environmental Services area, with the assistance of Transportation and Engineering departments, have been managing 3 separate hydrocarbon discharges. These discharges are not uncommon during the spring melt, as spills that occur during the winter make their way into the storm system now during the springtime. Transportation has spent some time in mitigating some flood issues adjacent to the new Highway 43 west of the airport that may have an unintended consequence of the road construction. So we're monitoring that right now. And also transportation enacted some road bans on gravel roads to preserve the structural integrity of the road. For the next couple of weeks, transportation is very active in creating 2 pothole crews per shift, starting the night of the 19th, so yesterday, with 1 cold mix crew and 1 hot mix crew for asphalt repairs. The Environment Department is continuing to monitor stormwater contamination and is developing phase 2 of the GP grows, that is the root vegetables phase of the program. So we'll be launching the phase 2 very soon. Engineering is monitoring the reservoir levels at the Bear Creek Reservoir with no concerns. Just to give you an idea, the spillway is currently operating at about 60% of the total discharge capacity. Total discharge capacity is about 110 cubic meters per second, and it's operating at about 60 cubic meters per second. The normal average annual flow is between 3 to 5 cubic meters per second. So to have an idea of the magnitude of the discharge. However, we're balancing the reservoir between the inflows and the outflows, trying to discharge water to a point where we are not damaging downstream infrastructure, and we are preserving also upstream infrastructure, preventing flooding. Engineering continues to issue tenders and requests for proposals for the construction season for the approved capital plan 2020. And also transportation will begin road sweeping and boulevard cleaning this week. On the protective and social services side, as you know, the director's office is busy, both the director and a senior executive advisor working at the GPREP, Emergency Operations Center. However, they will be doing week on and week off rotations to resume some regular business operations for the city. Enforcement services, the province has authorized community peace officers to enforce the Public Health Act. Enforcement is assisting the province in achieving compliance with public health orders, and we have had a significant number of complaints regarding social distancing and quarantine requirements. The department followed up on all complaints, and no charges have been laid to date. They are doing a lot of education when they see public in the park and in any other areas gathering, just talking to people and performing education about social distancing measures. Also, enforcement staff are also providing security at various GPREP sites and doing some work on boulevard bylaws, updating standard operating procedures, and updating training manuals, and developing a recruitment strategy. For community social development, the CSD is, of course, heavily involved in providing the emergency social services component of the GPREP response. So there's a regular contact with the provincial ministries from this department, and Home Support is preparing a phased relaunch to continue assisting their most vulnerable clients. The RCMP detachment is reporting slightly lower call volumes, and a quarterly update will be presented at the next Protective and Social Services Committee meeting from the RCMP. The RCMP keeps performing employment-related criminal record checks at the detachment. The fire department is also involved heavily in the GPREP operations, and several members are assigned to key roles in the EOC. In terms of community services, the facilities department, they are capitalizing on the unoccupied buildings and trying to accomplish as much work as possible in all the 3 budget areas, in operating, in renewal, and in capital projects. For sports development, wellness, and culture, they're working on an online fine arts programming collaboration between the City of Grande Prairie, the Art Gallery, and the Center for Creative Arts to encourage the community to make art as a form of wellness activity. And the city aims to support both organizations and the current online programming efforts by promoting them on the city's website and social media platforms, in addition to exploring program partnerships opportunities. The CKC, the Community Knowledge Campus, Strategic Marketing launched an EastLink Center social media contest for residents to stay connected to the facility by submitting their at-home workouts. So the intent is to take some photos or videos of at-home workout station and submit that on social media. A lot of creative fitness happening in the community for folks to stay healthy, which is good. Events and entertainment. The library is still running their online and curbside programs, and the Day Bar Community Center and the shelter up and running there is running very smoothly. Revolution Place, they're working with agents and promoters to plan routing for tours in the future. The majority of agencies are holding off sending out their artists until 2021. They want to be sure the market is back before going into full tours. So many agencies are asking us for multi-date routing plans, contingency budgeting, and projections for each artist. There's a lot of work going on behind the scenes to stay in this conversation with the tools for next year and the rest of the year. A couple of postponed events are looking for dates in October to be rescheduled, of course, pending the evolution of the COVID-19 spread. They're working on a number of contingency plans for physical spacing, countdown capacities, and extra hand wash stations to potential shows in the late fall. Also working with the Storm team to have the team hit the ice for training camp on August 21st, 2020. The AHGL is optimistic that the league will reopen the September 18, 2020 weekend for hockey. For transit, the transit department is now providing a bike reservation on demand pilot project during the COVID-19 situation. This service is just from bus stop to bus stop only. The service is limited to the following essential trip purposes only: work, medical, groceries, and pharmacy. The service is available Monday to Friday, 8:15 p.m. to 9:15 p.m. on Saturdays. Monday to Friday, and on Saturday, 7:15 p.m. to 9:15 p.m. Reservation requests must be submitted before noon of the day of the planned trip. Requests will be reviewed and responded to with a pickup time, window, and a bus stop location. We're working on trying to make this as a routine process. For some people, they have regular schedules as well. Finally, for the Corporate Services Department, I will focus my update on the finance and taxation component of the department. As you know, they are the backbone of the city operations right now. So to give you an update about that, as of Friday, April 17, 2020, we have just over $9 million in our operating bank account. So the approved $35 million line of credit is projected to be enough to cover cash requirements until the fall. The cash projections were done on a worst case scenario, assuming no one would make tax payments until August 31st. While we have some new sign-ups on the TIPS program, that is the paying taxes on installments every month. However, we had 147 accounts withdraw from the program in March, and further 98 withdrawn from the program so far in April. Just to give you an idea of the meaning of that, and that is a net difference of $325,000 less in monthly payments compared to the end of February. The projections indicate that we will need to draw from the approved line of credit, the 35 million line of credit, at the beginning in the month of May. And we'll need to draw down our $9 million that we have right now in the bank for check rounds, payroll, debt payments, school requisitions, and our quarterly payment to the RCMP. The actual direct COVID impact to date have been estimated in $540,000. That is a net when we consider the reductions in revenue because of closing of city facilities, but also the savings for some layoffs in terms of temporary casual employees, etc. So the net is $540,000 deficit. March month end has now closed, and departments in collaboration with finance are actively working on a forecast for what future impacts we may see. This will be finalized in the coming weeks. After the 2020 budget was set, as you know, the city saw a staff restructuring that allowed us to start 2020 in a projected surplus position. This situation, combined with flexibility in our budget for planned investments in financial stabilization, will help us to cover unexpected costs. So that is my brief update for the situation on the last 2 weeks and what the next 2 weeks may look like. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Mr. Galante. Any questions for the city manager? Councilor Thiessen, then Councilor Bresson.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given, and thank you for the update, City Manager Galante. I don't know why I did that. Anyways, I have a comment and a question. My comment is really on the GP Grows project. Phenomenal teamwork done by the City of Grande Prairie, representing about 9 different departments that I could keep track of: graphic design, environmental stewardship, parks, transportation, the sign shop, CSD, sports development, wellness, communications, Eastlink Center, the museum, strategic marketing. I think that was more than 9. Anyways, there was nothing but smiles and grateful people that came through. And I served out about 350 personally to everybody. Social distancing was maintained. The traffic flow was perfect. So just a big kudos to the team that helped put together that GP Grows. I was proud to be a part of it and proud to spread some smiles in our fair community. So thank you for that, Horacio. The question that I have actually is also in regard to our community. Typically at this time of year, the Rotary clubs band together with schools. We do a city scrub, especially after the snow all melts. I've been getting a few phone calls and emails and texts about the amount of litter out on in our parks, in our fields, on our trails. And people are wondering what the city's plans are to do that. Now, typically we tap the community for this. I was just wondering if maybe we had a plan going forward to make our community as beautiful as we feel it is.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, good point, and I see Director Glavin as well there. We had conversations at CLT on how to manage this particular year, because this is the time that usually we launch the program. So there have been some conversations in doing the cleanup, using mostly transportation department personnel, but I will refer to Brian if you want to provide more details, so you have more advanced conversations with transportation. Brian, please.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you, Mayor Given. So historically, parks crews have done some of that work in conjunction with both City Scrub as well as the Rotary Greenathon that had historically went on. I haven't heard an update whether Greenathon is going to happen in some shape or form yet, but I believe that, I know that Environment is looking at what we could do as an alternative to engage people be part of this, as there are opportunities to do some things in a socially distanced manner, but we will have parks and transportation do a lot of the heavy lifting on this year.
Okay, thank you. If I may just follow up, is there a plan to, you said we were going to perhaps message it out to the community. Is there anything we can do right away? Just simply because there's lots of people currently out walking, the weather's getting nicer, and I think that's where people are noticing it. Is there anything that we can do maybe on our city website right now to encourage people to be mindful in their practices while they're walking?
Director Lavin?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Given. I'll have a discussion with Environment and Communications, and we'll see what we can put out.
Great, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Councilor Thiessen. Thanks, Director Lavin. Councilor Bressley.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Given. I had one of those Zoom hiccups that I'm sure everybody's experienced once in a while, so my apologies if this was said and I missed it. But a question that I've got from the community is just as the weather's improving and we see more people out in our trails and in our park spaces, especially the main corridors such as the paved path through Muskogee, is there anything being done to help ensure social distancing is happening on those paths, and more importantly, to help people find adequate outdoor space to be socially distant while still outside as the weather improves?
Sure. Would that be for the city manager?
Yeah.
Whichever member of administration wants it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So actively, RCMP and enforcement, they are patrolling on bikes. I was actually yesterday running on the trails, and I saw a couple of police officers on bikes. You know, talking to people. They stop at one of the bridges. That were probably 6 or 7 people in different groups. They were separated, mostly families, that had a quick, 20-second chat, and they continued on the bikes. So they are monitoring that in the park. I noticed a lot of people yesterday, absolutely, with the nice weather now. One of the intents as well is to start some crack sealing with the crew on the trails. This is the right time of the year where the cracks are wide open, still it's cold before the summer months. So we will improve the quality of the trails as well, and we can employ some employees as well, redeploy. Sweeping the park pretty much from Center 2000 to Sauber Creek, the full length that is very well used for pedestrians and bikers. So hopefully that responds to the question, Councilor Bressley.
Sure, thank you.
Councilor Bressley, thank you. Any other questions for the city manager? If there are none, then I would look for a motion to receive his report for information. Councilor Thiessen, and I'll just check. I don't see Councilor Minhas. Councilor Minhas, are you there? Okay, so we do in council chambers from time to time have council members who have to leave, and so we just will record him as not voting on this. I'll call for the motion, or sorry, for the vote. All in favor? Thank you. Councilor Minhas, sorry, I just see you've just joined us. That was a motion to receive the city manager's report for information. Were you in favor of that motion? Yes, okay, thank you. So I believe that's unanimous then. And that'll bring us to the first of our additional agenda items with respect to advancing infrastructure projects to support economic recovery. I would ask if there's a council member prepared to make a motion giving me some direction to write the provincial government. Administration has developed a list of shovel-ready projects. As I think I've related to council before, there have been a number of mentions from the province that there would be some kind of infrastructure stimulus program announced. Administration has been doing some proactive work on that and identifying concepts and projects, along with the amount of employment that could be generated by those. That there would be some sort of envelope approach, which I took to mean that it wouldn't necessarily be application based, but we certainly don't want to fall behind the 8 ball not having submitted anything in case the province starts choosing projects. So I think administration had provided suggested wording for that motion, and I noticed Councillor O'Toole. Except that your microphone is not on, Councillor O'Toole. I just can't get you if you're, and it is connecting now, and we'll Okay, it should only take a second. And
of those new jobs as well. So we can circulate the list to council person.
Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I'm certainly in favor of providing a list to the Alberta government so that if the opportunity arises, we're able to jump on the bandwagon. I'm not sure about timing. I would hope that the Alberta government would not approve projects at a time when people who would be sent to do these projects would be putting themselves at risk because of a lack of social distancing. So I hope there would be a second step in the process that would allow us to look at whether or not it would be appropriate when project is proposed to go ahead, that we know for sure that our workers will remain safe.
Thanks for that, Councillor Blackburn. Yeah, the effect of this motion is essentially to forward that to the province for their consideration. Ultimately, whether any project is approved would have to follow any provincial public health orders that are in place around social distancing or business operations. So that would, of course, be the first thing. I think this is essentially about making sure that the City of Grande Prairie and our community isn't missed in the queue because others certainly are submitting similar lists. Any other discussion or questions? Councillor O'Toole?
I hope my mic is on. Is it?
It is.
Well,
Yes.
I'm very happy that the administration is looking forward thinking and getting everything ready. So when the decision does come down to accept some of these, then we are already many steps ahead of everybody else. So support council members to vote positive for this. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole. So I didn't see anybody else in the queue. So I'll call for the vote on the motion. All in favor? Okay, I believe that's unanimous. And then we had our second additional item with respect to Budget 2020. The intent, and again, administration had forwarded some recommended wording for this motion. The council direct administration to develop a budget scenario considering a 0% tax increase for 2020 and have it ready for discussion of council by mid-May. Is there a council member, Councillor Thiessen?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Given. I will make that motion. And speaking to it, I like how this has all come back around circular because we were talking about zero at budget. It's not fortunate that the situation that we're in, that is having administration look into this. They seem confident that they could pull it off or at least give us the details of how they might be able to pull it off amidst all this COVID. So 0% tax increase, I think, is a big win for our community if we can pull it off. And I look forward to having that discussion and seeing what administration brings forward for their planning in order to achieve that. So for all those reasons, I encourage council to support this motion.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Any other discussion or debate at this time? Councillor Palat.
Thank you, Mayor Gibbon. I'm very appreciative of administration bringing this forward. I know it's not fun times, and like Councillor Thiessen said, we did talk about this quite a bit at budget. I am going to be looking to amend the motion, though. I do think it's a great time for us to have this conversation, and I'm sure there's more scenarios being planned than we're speaking of with our administration. I know I've got great confidence in them that they're looking at different things. So I'm going to amend the motion to say that the budget scenario also includes a -2 and a -5. And what I'm hoping back when we come back and when we get the report back is we can look at what a -2 would look like and what kind of impact that would have on the community, and what a -5 would look like and what kind of impact that would have on the community. Not saying council is going to go ahead and choose more than the -2 or the -2 or the -5, but I would like us to have a look at those things and see what the debate would look like at that point. COVID's changed a lot of things. I think we're all aware of that, but you know, what's the growth rate look like for the city moving forward? What do wage rates look like from the city moving forward? There's lots of things that we still don't know about, so I'd like to run the scenarios and have that conversation as a council. I do really appreciate it. I want to say that again. I know there's lots on the administration's plates. For them to even put this to us, to have a conversation about it is amazing, and I hope that you guys can support seeing a few more scenarios on there for our community to have some chatter about.
Okay, so that motion's in order, of course. Councillor Palat's motion to direct administration to add 2 additional scenarios beyond the 0% scenario that was in the original motion. So we'll have discussion and debate on the amendment. Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you, Mayor Gibbon. I appreciate that this might be the opportunity to have a look at a greater reduction than was being originally proposed by administration. I don't imagine, and I guess I don't know for sure, but I don't imagine we would end up going for either of those other options in the long run, because we've already seen in the past how if we make too large a reduction, we end up having to catch up in future years, and probably in the very near future, given all of the other economic challenges that we've got. And I'm just not sure that it would be worthwhile to have administration go to all that work. So I'm going to oppose the amendment.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Blackburn. Any other discussion or debate on the amendment? Councillor Thiessen.
Well, thank you, Mayor Bill. You could have gone ahead of me if you so choose. I too am leaning towards not supporting the motion. I guess I just have to ask administration, because I don't feel like I could do a -2 or -5, even if we said we could achieve it. I think that might create really big layoffs, delay of the proper labor to do any extra road work we may be able to get out of the province if that were to happen, or even just to do regular city operations. But how hard would it be for a finance department to run a -2 or -5 scenario? Are we asking a lot of work for them, or is this just, well, we could do this? Like, I suppose it has to be vetted, but I guess this is for the city manager or director of corporate services.
I'll recognize the city manager first, and if he wishes to throw it over to the director, then that would be up to him. Mr. City Manager.
Okay, thank you. As you recall, we went through this exercise in November 2019, when different packages were presented to council. As you may remember, the green package, a yellow package, and a red package with different options, with different level of impact, both in city operations and level of service to the community in different areas. So we were envisioning if we need to develop some sort of multi-scenario budgeting in addition to the 0%, we will have to go back to kind of that technique. As you know, the level of impact in the community will be different in terms of level of services and the manpower to provide those services. So we can do that at the high level. We have a very good understanding of priorities with priority-based budgeting and the ranking of services we conducted during 2019. So we can prepare the scenarios. We have about 3 weeks to do this, so it's a tight timeline, but I feel confident we can provide that information to council.
Okay, thank you. Just a comment, I guess. With that being said, thank you for that, Horacio. Just going back to, I guess, budget. a lot of the stuff in the yellow and red packages were some things that administration put some work into presenting to council, and at the end of the day, council kind of threw it out. You know, like there wasn't a lot of sentiment that we could move forward with cutting things out of the yellow and the red packages rather than the green packages, the nice easy ones. I think this might be, in saying all that, I think this might be an exercise in just adding extra work, and it is interesting, and I commend Councillor Platt for suggesting it. But I feel like if we have the -2 and the -5 presented to us and we opted to go with that, I think that could negatively impact our recovery and our recovery efforts. I don't want to, at some point we're talking about COVID, that's what we're talking about right now, but at some point in the future we're going to talk about recovery. And I don't want to cut off administration's legs from the ability to have the staff and resources or the finances truly to be able to act on that. I'm actually quite happy that this recommendation is coming forward at a 0%. I think that's sort of the standard that the province set with their education requisition fund. So I can totally get behind this, and I think the people would be okay with a flat tax. And I think at the end of the day, even with all this extra work put in, I think council would still settle on 0. So for all those reasons, I'm going to not vote in favor of the amendment. Thank you.
Sorry, thanks, Councillor Pease. Did I see Councillor Bressie and then Councillor O'Toole?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm struggling with this. I'm leaning towards no, but I'm still thinking about it. And I think that two points I'd raise is one, as we're talking about getting aggressive with our tax rate, I think we need to remember that this didn't hit till we were a third of our way through our fiscal year. So asking for to achieve 5% cut to taxes, really my back of the napkin math tells me that administration would have to do, what is that, about a 6.5% equivalent cut to catch up on the first 3 months they missed. So as we're talking about cuts, just keep that in mind that this is something we're adjusting mid-fiscal year, which means bigger cuts hit something. I think where I'm struggling with is I really think that we're at a point where we've spent where we need to be talking about right-sizing services more than right-sizing our budget. Became really clear to me during the last budget discussions, where I'm very open to the idea of saying, hey, we've got a new fiscal reality, so my bet thing is we should plow the roads a little bit less. Or we've got a new fiscal reality, let's start talking about cutting the grass less. Or those kinds of conversations I'm very open to, but I'm hesitant just to say we're taking this knife of this size to the budget and administration figure it out. So I don't know where I'm going to go on voting with this, but I'm tending towards no right now.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Bressie. Councillor O'Toole?
Yeah, I won't be supporting this motion. I like what Councillor Palat is sort of thinking, but I realize that there's a lot of things happening in the city and in the people, and I think that our staff, the administration, has worked very hard to get it down to this number, and I think we need to consider that very much. So at a 0%, I'm very much liking that. Anything less is going to hurt the integrity of the city. So I'm going to leave it at that. I won't be supporting the amendment. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor O'Toole. Did I see Councillor Clayton? Did you have your hand up? Yeah.
Thanks, Mayor Given. Just to address Councillor O'Toole's comments there, I don't think that a -2 necessarily has to impact the integrity of any operations. Depending on the outcome of what COVID looks like, if we have facilities that remain closed till September, that therefore incur no expenses because there's no staff, so the odd janitorial staff goes through, maybe a facilities person goes through to make sure a pipe hasn't burst. There's no revenue, however, there's no expenses. Some of that -2 numbers are easily achieved because of unfortunate situations as such as not opening a facility. So although the scenario may look, the task of looking at -2 and a -5 seem quite onerous, and there's a lot of variables that aren't known. When is the finite date of when we start to open facilities? When do people actually start to pay taxes? Because some people, quite frankly, may not be able to afford to pay taxes till the fall this year. So there's a lot of unknowns in this sort of equation. Administration at this point has been able to forecast a zero to what they know today. But that's not to say that if we were to not look at forecasting a -2 or a -5, that we couldn't get there based on the timeline. And the unknowns, sure, we don't know them. My concern with not looking at a -2 or a -3 or -4 or -5 is that we don't set the tone for what expenditures become from a facility. If the facility doesn't open, I'm sorry, the floor doesn't need to be cleaned every day. It doesn't need to be cleaned probably every week. I think that if, you know, we look at an overarching, nobody has a crystal ball, but if we as a group agree that we're going to be in a state of emergency for much longer, we're going to have facilities that aren't open for many, many months, what does that look like? And so by setting a tone at a -2 and a -5, the financial people will have to take those things into consideration. If we were to open tomorrow with all our facilities, it'd be probably even tough to get to a 0. So that's my concern with all these unknown variables. But I don't think it's an unrealistic task for us to look at a -2 or a -5. So I will support the motion.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Clayton. Did I see Councillor Minhas?
Yes, I am struggling to support it this time because I see it because we already laid off quite a few people, and the administration going to have overload work to look at how much work I don't know. But I look in the future, but this time they come up with this idea 0%. I'm happy with that one, but I'm just very confused to supporting to amendment. Yes, 2 and 5 is kind of deep, and we don't know, like Jackie said, you know, the cost is not going to be there, but utility cost is still there. You have to be, you know, keep there and pay the utility bills and everything else that we don't know the cost is going to be. So we don't want to go too deep to manage in the future. We might get in trouble. So I won't be able to support it.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Minhas. I'll just say that I also won't be supporting the motion. I think a lot like Councillor Barresi identified, when we start to get to those levels, we're talking about services and council prioritizing one service over another. I think that's best done in the context of a full budget discussion. And that's what we did last fall going into this. It would be fair for us to say that our priorities have changed. And that's why I would be willing to consider, and depending on the information administration provides, consider a 0% in 2020 in the current year. And anything beyond that, I think council needs to look at those services holistically in the context of a full budget discussion. If the world has changed so significantly that we need to even more significantly than we have already, reduce city services, then that's fine. We can make that determination at a budget discussion. This is about hey, we're in the middle of a tax year, just before we send out the bills. Do we want to do a gut check on where we are? And I would, be willing to say that this is not a year to have any kind of increase. I could understand that, and I have some confidence that administration has already worked up that plan. I am not comfortable giving administration 3 weeks to come up with what will likely be significant service level reductions, and then council be on the clock to approve or not approve that because we do have legislated timelines to be sending out tax notices and other things. So for those reasons, I won't support the amendment. I will reserve judgment on whether or not I'll support the 0% reduction. But at this time, I am in favor of asking administration to gather that information so we can make an informed choice at a subsequent council meeting. Was there anybody else that had any discussion on the amendment before we go to Councillor Palat to close? I don't see anybody, so we'll go to Councillor Palat to close on the amendment.
Thanks, Mayor Gibbon. I appreciate all the comments made by all the council. I know this isn't an easy decision. I do want to remind you, though, that COVID has changed anything. When we approved this budget, we also approved that everybody was going to have 100% services for 12 months of the year. They're not. People simply aren't getting full services right now, and yet we're only going to drop by 1.25%. We lose $4.5 million every year on just Eastlink Center being open. It's not open. So we need to be having these conversations. I don't think we're asking administration to do anything more than they're already saying they're willing to do. Our city manager said it was doable. Scenario budgeting for us to look at today is, if nothing else, setting us up for the hard decisions we're probably going to have to make next year. Because the tough decisions are going to come if COVID has the impacts. On top of what's OPEC's going on, if everybody hasn't seen where oil's at, that should be an even bigger concern for our community right now than what's happening here. I'm not asking us to sit here and say that we're not going to do a 3% or 5% or 2%. I don't understand how we wouldn't have the conversation though and look at it. I can't imagine what the community is going to think of us if we said, you know what, scenarios budgeting, we could have maybe looked at 2 and we could have maybe looked at a 5, but we just chose to stick with 0 because it was easier, and that was the right thing to do because it was easier. This isn't about easy times, you guys. There's tough decisions that are going to have to be made. We had a platform at council that said 400 housing starts this year. We had 25 at the end of March, and no housing starts coming anytime in the future. We also could talk about parks. We could talk about extra reductions there. There's lots of other departments that could be discussed, and I'm more than confident if we ask for a -2 and a -5, administration is going to come back with reasonable things that will work for that. I don't understand why we wouldn't, as a council, want to at least have that conversation rather than just saying, you know what, community, it was too much work. 0 is what we should settle on. Let's just move on. This is recovery strategy building for next year by finding any savings we can find this year is only going to help us for recovery coming out of this because we're going to need the money in 2021 more than ever. So I please urge you to council to just go through this exercise of asking administration to give us scenario budgeting, which was all we were approving was scenario budgeting of a -2 and a -5 so we can have a good conversation about that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Plott. So we'll call for the vote. All in favor of the amendment? This is just on Councillor Plott's amendment. Those in favor of the amendment? I see 4 in favor and opposed. I see 5 opposed, so the amendment does not carry. So we'll go back to the main motion as originally worded. Is there any need for discussion or debate on the main motion as originally worded? Councillor Bressie.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I'm going to try a similar but a slightly different motion to Councillor Plott's because I don't know if others were. I was kind of on the fence. 2 and 5 was a lot of work, but I'm going to try a halfway motion there and see if that passes. And I'm going to move that we amend Councillor Thiesen's motion to say provide scenarios for 0 and 2%. So it's going halfway to what Councillor Plott was proposing.
Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor Bressie. So the amendment motion is, of course, in order. So motion, an amendment to add a direction to administration to present a 2% reduction in addition to the 0% reduction scenario. Is there a need for discussion or debate on that? I will say that I won't support this as well. My understanding and, well, you know, from administration, and we could confirm that from the city manager, that at this stage, the response to COVID is actually a cost to the city. There are no savings that we're having. It is actually a loss in revenue and a net loss to the city. Some of the points that Councillor Plott raised with respect to reduced housing starts, actually are another area where the city is losing budgeted revenue. Those are all reasons why this will be even more significant service level impact. And that's the reason why council needs to be able to discuss those services rather than just the number. And I think that appropriate place, I maintain the appropriate place to do that is in the fall. If it simply means that we cannot, you know, fund reserves like maybe we're going to, or maybe we don't add things, then fine. And so I would be happy to have those discussions in the fall, but I won't be able to support the amendment. Any other discussion or debate on Councillor Bressie's amendment? Yeah, I see Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Given. I just want to make a comment about the lost revenue, and that's exactly why we need to be getting realistic about this. On regards to the 400 housing starts, if we were staffed appropriately to what we thought we might come out of those, the money's not in making permits. We lose money in permitting. We lose money in a lot of departments we have with the city. That's understandable. That's what we have to do. But we're choosing to lose money in areas because we're thinking we're going to come crushing out of this like there's going to be some big rush in the economy coming out of this. The economy's not going to look the same coming out of this for a bit. And us by not reacting, I'm asking for us to, the -2 works out to about $300,000 a month from May 1st on. We can say we've incurred some losses to this point. We've done some layoffs. We probably had some severances including those layoffs. That stuff's not baked in moving forward. And I guess for me, I want to remind us we haven't had a lot of conversations about what our financial situation looks like currently since COVID's happened. Until I get more clarification on that, I would like to have more conversations on that too. So I really urge Councillor Bressie's motion to pass. And I want you to honestly think about what you're going to say to the community when they say, why didn't you want to approve at least looking at a -2 scenario budgeting? I really want you to be able to look your community members in the eye and be able to answer them why you couldn't say we should have at least looked at a -2 scenario budget.
Thanks, Councillor Plott. Councillor Clayton.
Thanks, Mayor Given. Although many of our facilities will have loss of revenues, they'll also have significant loss in expenses. And many of our facilities, such as Eastlink, outdoor, the community knowledge, the football field, the track at Community Knowledge Campus, the day bar arena, not day bar is a bad example, but the outdoor swimming pool, they already are subsidized by the city. When they have less expenses, the revenue is such a small amount when people are paying usage compared to what our expenses are. I think that although you look at housing starts and significant pieces like deferred taxes, et cetera, the revenue decrease will be enormous. However, I think our expenses are going to be significantly less. And so at a -2, it tasks administration to see what that looks like. And I think that's a fair number to consider for council. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Clayton. Anybody else for Councillor Bressy's amendment? Seeing none, then I will call for the vote on Councillor Bressy's amendment. All in favor? See 4 and opposed? See 5 opposed. That motion does not carry. So we're back to the main motion again as originally worded. Is there any further discussion or debate on the main motion as originally worded? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Okay. And opposed? See 1 opposed. So that motion does carry. I think that handles our 2 added agenda items and would take us into committee business. And the first is the minutes from the Infrastructure and Economic Development Committee meeting. Can I get a motion to adopt that set of minutes from our chair?
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move that council adopt the minutes from the April 14th Infrastructure and Development Committee held on April 14th as presented.
Thanks very much, Councillor Bressy. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Anything that you wanted to highlight, Councillor Bressy?
Yeah, there's going to be no business arising for this, but a few things coming from the Director's Service Area update that I think are worth the public knowing about is the City Manager highlighted a lot of the most pertinent ones, but 2 that I'll pull out is there's work undergoing with the City, the County, and the Chamber of Commerce to provide advisory services to businesses that are trying to figure out how to navigate the changing economy we're in the middle of right now, and also to access mental health care for business owners and business managers that are having troubles coping with this. And so I was proud to hear about that initiative of the city, and the city and the county work together to kick some money into that. The other thing that I think that our public will be very interested to know is Inspection Services is working with the province on the final inspections for the hospital, which right now is set to be completed by the end of June. And that doesn't mean the hospital will be opening up at the end of June because AHS still has to move in and commission and all that. But at least it's looking like it's going to be done getting built by the end of June, which is very exciting for our community. That being said, on a theme I've had in the past, it would be, as I'll point out again, as we do our inspections, that's really the last chance we get to get fair revenue out of this property that serves an entire region. After it's turned over, we still continue to provide very expensive municipal services to it, and we get pennies on the dollar from the province for doing that, which is a subsidization that we're giving to all the residents of Northern Alberta. So excited to see that hospital open, but I'm really disappointed to see it becoming a drain on the city's books that are paid by our taxpayers and benefit many others.
Thanks, Councillor Bressy. Councillor Bressy did make the motion to adopt the minutes as presented, unless there are any errors or omissions. Seeing nothing, then I'll call for the vote to adopt those minutes. All in favor? Thank you. That motion carries unanimously. And that'll take us to 8.2, Community Services Committee meeting from that same day. Can I get a motion for that set of minutes from our chair?
So that would be me. Hi, thank you, Mayor Given. I would like to move that council adopt the minutes of the Community Services Committee meeting held Tuesday, April 14th, 2020.
Thanks very much, Councillor Friesen. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Any errors or omissions before I ask Councillor Friesen to give us an update? Seeing none, then Councillor Friesen, did you wish to provide a sort of overview of the meeting?
Yeah, I'd like to. Thank you. There is no business arising. And what I would like to share, though, is that even though we've got some facilities that are shut down right now, they are getting very, very deep cleaning done, which is really important. It's pretty rare that this can happen, so taking advantage of the downtime because of the closures is a great thing to do. On-site programs are all suspended at Community Knowledge Campus, so at Eastlink Center. Also at Revolution Place. However, for those of you who are watching and haven't had the opportunity to tune in yet, there is Tunes at 2 on social media. Every day at 2 p.m., Revolution Place posts media from a local artist that or an artist that has played in the venue in the past. So please tune into that, catch that on social media. Dave Barr is partnering with Northreach right now, and they are providing space for some of our vulnerable residents so that those who are housed in facilities can have space to social distance to limit the spread of COVID. And as our city manager mentioned, the art gallery, the Center for Creative Arts, are collaborating with the city right now on a fine arts program. We're looking forward to seeing what can come of that. And transit service adjustments are being made such that we can still get around for essential activities. And I think it's pretty exciting that the city is trying out an on-demand kind of hybrid model that I know Cochrane has right now, and we'll see what that's like. So whether or not we can, implement that going forward after we come out of this event. That's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Friesen. So I didn't see anybody bring in with any errors or omissions or amendments. We've received the update, and so I'll call for the vote for all those in favor of receiving that set of minutes. In favor, and I see Councillor Thiessen voting with a thumbs up. Thank you, Councillor Thiessen. His screen may be down for a moment, but we got your thumbs up. Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. I believe that motion carried unanimously. And that'll take us to the Corporate Services Committee meeting, and I think that's Councillor Minhas.
Thank you, well, Mayor Given. I move the council adopt the minutes of the Cooperative Service Committee meeting held on Tuesday, April 14, 2020, as presented.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Minhas. Are there any errors or omissions that we need to correct before we adopt that set of minutes? Seeing nothing. Councillor Minhas, did you wish to provide any kind of update from that meeting?
No, there's not much.
Okay. Okay, thank you. No business rising, no update. Then we'll call for the vote. All in favor of adopting that set of minutes as presented? Thank you. That motion carries unanimously, and that'll take us to Protective and Social Services.
Thanks, Mayor Given. I would just make a motion that we receive the Protective and Social Services agenda meeting from April 14th.
Thanks very much, Councillor Plott. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Any errors or omissions? Councillor Plott, did you want to provide an update in the meeting?
It was very brief. We had a very good verbal our director, Chris Manuel, give us a very good verbal update on a few items. We went through the act, and there was no business arising.
Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor Plott. I will call for the vote to adopt that set of minutes. All in favor? Thank you. I think that carries unanimously. And that handles all of our committee business. I don't believe we had any items of correspondence this afternoon, nor delegations or notice of motion. And so that would give us an opportunity to recess at this time. We will reconvene for a public hearing that was scheduled for 6 p.m. That likely will be a very short public hearing, as we will look to reschedule it. Arlene, can you maybe just give us a bit of the overview of why that is and what you expect to happen this evening? You'll just have to get your microphone, though.
Thank you, Mayor Given. On Friday, April 17th, we received a new ministerial order, actually two, from the province, rescinding the previous ministerial order that did generate some unintended consequences based on the parameters that were set out in that order. In the new order, we are back to business as usual for a number of things, but having said that, the timelines have been reset to the date that this new order has been signed, which is April 17th. And so what that means for us is any advertising that we did prior to April 17th for today's public hearing is not applicable. It's not eligible. We have to reset the clock to April 17th. We've been in touch with the legal advisors on this and with municipal affairs as well this afternoon. And it's been confirmed that that's in fact what we have to do for our public hearing this afternoon. Moving forward, this is the only public hearing that the city does have that is being affected by this. And all of our other public hearings will be business as usual.
Okay, thanks for that, Arlene. Councillor Clayton?
Thanks, Councillor Clayton. Then I would ask, is the recommendation that we postpone this public hearing in order to have the needs to re-advertise?
Thank you, Mayor Bill. Yes, that is correct. The motion that we'll make this afternoon will be to postpone the public hearing to the May 19th regular council meeting, and that will allow administration to comply with the required advertising requirements as per the Municipal Government Act.
Great, thanks, Ms. Karbashuski. I would be prepared to make that motion, Mayor Given.
So just to clarify, was that the intent was to make that motion now, or do we need to reconvene at the scheduled time?
Because we did advertise that this particular public hearing was to start for 6 p.m., we do have to open the hearing at 6 p.m., and then within the hearing, we will make that motion.
Okay, thank you.
So it is a bit of a formal process. Just in case, on the off chance somebody did show up wishing to speak, we would start the public hearing, and then we'd see if there's anybody there, so they would have a chance to speak if they had intended to. If there wasn't, then we would do the action as recommended by Ms. Karbashuski. So it'll be a really brief, likely a very brief meeting, but we'll have to return. With that, then I think I will call us in recess until we're back for 5 or 10 minutes at 6 o'clock. Thanks, everyone. 3, 2, 1. Okay, and we're back for the second half of the Grande Prairie Public Council meeting for Monday, April 20th. This is to receive a public hearing. My understanding from administration is, as we noted at the end of our last meeting, that due to some of the provincial changes, we will likely have to postpone this, but I will first call the public hearing to order. This is for the matter related to bylaw C-1260-120, which is a rezoning for agricultural to rural industrial. I'd call this to order. And Arlene, I just want to see, should we maybe have an introduction from Mr. DeRoche before council postpones?
An introduction isn't necessary. We don't have to do anything but postpone this by council resolution. And then at the May 19th City Council meeting, we will get a full presentation from administration within the new public hearing. Okay, thank you for that. So then council, with that, if we can, we will get the full meal deal when it comes up back in May 19th if we have a motion to postpone. Councilor Friesen?
Sorry, trying to get that unmuted there. So thank you, Mayor Given. I would like to move that council postpone this public hearing to the City Council meeting scheduled on May 19th, 2020. And just to speak to this is because of recent timeline changes by the province and is the recommendation of our city clerk to postpone, and it is actually the requirement to repost the public hearing.
Thanks very much, Councillor Friesen. Any discussion or debate? Is that motion to postpone, which I believe was date specific? Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, then I will. Councillor O'Toole?
Just wondering if anybody showed up at the City Hall to deal with this today? Just double check.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor O'Toole, for asking. Was there anybody that had attended to City Hall? I see that we now have one called Lobby Public. So was there anybody that had attended at City Hall intending to speak to this public hearing?
I can speak on behalf of administration here at City Hall that no one was available to speak to this public hearing. I am under the understanding that administration did give a couple of individuals notice that we would be postponing this to May 19th. And I do expect we will see those public members at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor O'Toole. If there wasn't anything else, then I will call for the vote to postpone this public hearing to May 19th. All in favor? Thank you. That carries unanimously, I believe. And so with that, Council, I'm actually going to turn it over to Councillor O'Toole as Deputy Mayor to chair the rest of the meeting. There is a town hall conference call with the Premier and Minister of Municipal Affairs that I'm going to go and make myself available for so I can listen in on that and report back to Council. Thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole, for taking over.
Thank you very much. So we'll move on to item 15, delegation business. We had none. So with that, we will move on to council member reports. Does anybody have any council member reports? Show of hands. We have no council member reports. And
pardon me, Councillor O'Toole?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Toole? I do actually have a library report, library board meeting that I attended. I'm going to grab my notes here. That last bit went so quickly, I wasn't quite prepared here. So our library is actually really quite busy. There are a few staff members who, because of COVID, have taken leaves of absence. They're either on care to protect themselves as vulnerable or to care for kids who are out of school. So what's happening though at the library, because of course the public would be aware that it's physically closed down, the physical space, they're still working very hard with curbside pickup and virtual games, online fielding calls to get online access to books, audio books, that sort of thing. And good news is that there is a waiving of all late fees. So if you're out there and you've got some overdue books, don't even worry about it. Late fees are completely waived for the time being. So, so they really are quite busy still. They were the first, I really want to give a shout out to the library. They were one of the first libraries to be closed down in the province, and they responded really quickly with flipping over to curbside pickup and that sort of thing. So they have tens of thousands of pieces of material that are out there, but they're also, because of being early in the game, our library is a resource for libraries across the province to understand how to do sanitizing and just manage the logistics of curbside pickup and that sort of thing. So that's kind of what's happening over at the library. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Councillor Friesen. Councillor Clayton.
Thanks, Councillor O'Toole. Just an update. I had a Grande Prairie Regional Tourism Association meeting last week through Skype, and it was a meeting that was put together with operators across the Northwest. It was a very full conversation in regards to hoteliers, operators of activities, elected official representatives from the board. At that time, we just sort of got an update of what people that are in that tourism and hospitality industry have been up to and what they're doing, what it looks like in regards to operating or not operating at this time. As well, we discussed in preparation of what the next 30, 60, 90 days look like for tourism. And also during that time, there's been some Travel Alberta calls of, marketing while you're not operating, et cetera. So I just wanted to update everybody that Grande Prairie Regional Tourism is keeping busy, working hard. They also, in prepared for this, basically have prepared a document that will sort of be their guideline for the next little while. And following Travel Alberta sort of steps, and it's based on the 3 principles of responding, rebuilding, and restarting. So there will definitely be some more marketing pieces, et cetera, that you see in the next little bit, but just to update everybody that GPRTA is working hard to respond best as they can and be prepared for when we come out of this. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Clayton. I'll move on to Councillor Christensen.
Thank you very much, Chairman Kevin O'Toole, Deputy Mayor. Just a quick update from Peace Library Systems. We had a meeting this past Saturday in Grande Prairie. It was in Grande Prairie. I phoned in for the meeting, but all other members of the executive committee came in. The proper social distancing was recognized, and from what I understand, everyone had their own table. It was far apart from each other. But there was some business to take care of. Part of it was our CEO recruitment. So to that, our recruiting team said that they had 3 candidates and interviewed 2 of them. They said both of the 2 candidates were great, but they have a second round of questions to be answered. But because of COVID, travel has been a bit of an impediment to finishing that process off. And if need be, they're going to do just like we are through Zoom to finish off their interviews with those people. On a side note, Linda Duplessis, the current executive director and CEO of Peace Library System, has agreed that if COVID becomes an impediment to any of her replacements to arrive and to have a smooth and seamless transition, that she would be willing to stay on for a couple extra months to see them through that. So that was good. Also, one of our biggest publishers recently lifted their ebook embargo, which is on all new releases for ebooks. Typically, they don't go out to libraries, but due to COVID, that embargo has been lifted. So now more people have access to those ebooks, and we're seeing a huge uptake on that. A couple of our programs, especially in educational learning, the lynda.com search engine is up by 10 times what its normal usage is, and sorry, I'm just going. And then the other one, the at-home school homework helper is at 4 times. So parents are using those and getting a lot of good use out of it for their kids. Finally, cash on hand is good for April and May, but typically libraries and library systems don't receive their grant funding from the province until June. And to date, we haven't heard anything from the province about when the funding would be sent out. So we are expecting it to come in June, but also being mindful. There's a lot of confidence with Linda that our finances will carry us through. And if we have to wait for any amount of time for that grant funding to come through, we have investments and reserves that we can tap into. And that's my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris Leeson. I just got one report. It's on the community futures of Grande Prairie and region. I spoke last time when I gave my report that a lot of inquiries for loans. That number has kind of slowed down a little bit, and now the inquiries are about financing and other things business related to where they can get help. And so all of the staff are very busy supporting our clients. And with that, I will leave more information available for next meeting, and I'll give you another update at that time. So with that, if I see no other persons wanting to give reports, I will call for the meeting to be adjourned. And,
thanks, Deputy Mayor O'Toole.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Night, everyone.
We'll talk to y'all soon.
Y'all.